the Cousin Sal's winning weekend. We are officially on the clock, so I'm not going to waste any time. Hey, look, I know we aren't supposed to give out guarantees on gambling programs, but I am guaranteeing a great show today, and a lot of that is due to our guest. We've got 7-time MLB All-Star, the New York Mets all-time leader in hits, RBIs, and my affection. David Wright is joining us. Come on, clap it up, Mikey Meatballs. We'll have a Yankee grade on next year or the year after, maybe. Then the D3 will join me to give their picks for today's NBA and NHL playoff matchups. The Bucks try to avoid going down 0-3 against the Pacers. We've got draft pick best bets, but before any of that, it's time for a segment that tests my reflexes and reactions. It involves our producer and John Cena hater, babyface Joel Solomon, throwing me a crumpled up piece of paper with a thought written on it. I'll catch it, I'll read it, and I'll tell you my thoughts on the issue. We call this Tossing Topics. All right, babyface, hit me with. Good one. Castellanos craziness. All right, Philadelphia Phillies outfielder Nick Castellanos has less than a handful of home runs so far this season. I think it's like 3. But earlier in the week, he suddenly became the most bet-on player to smack a dinger, and for good reason. By now, you've seen it. Nick has a knack for going yard at bad times. It all began in August 2020 when the Reds announcer was apologizing for an on-air slur.
If I have hurt anyone out there, I can't tell you how much I say from the bottom of my heart, I'm so very, very sorry. I pride myself and think of myself as a man of faith. As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be a home run.
The following season, as Royals announcers were paying tribute to a 96-year-old World War II pilot, Nick took one for a ride right in the middle of their eulogy.
For 26 years.
Wow.
And that was Pat's father. Well, that's a great life. 96 years. And Pat, just like his dad, went to KU. He also went to Bishop Ward High School. There's a drive into deep left center field, and there's never a great time to eulogize someone during the broadcast, so we apologize for the timing, but
call him the somber slugger. It just kept happening. Castellanos hit home runs during on-air discussion of a DUI, a historical retrospective on Memorial Day, and now anytime anything serious happens, people are betting on Castellanos to hit a home run. So on Monday, just hours after the Pope passed away, the odds shifted on FanDuel Sportsbook for a Castellanos home run from plus 750 to plus 300. FanDuel locked his odds temporarily, which I have to say made me think maybe this whole thing is bigger than baseball. Nick might have a higher power, definitely higher power numbers in times of doom. And I want to know how this started. Back in youth baseball, did Nick Castellanos hit an inside the Parker after the drummer from Def Leppard lost his arm? Did he hit a walk-off tater and T-ball the day Tupac met his maker? But then you realize this is all completely subjective. I'm sure the family of legendary game show host Wink Martindale was probably bummed Castellanos didn't come through this week after Wink had passed. I love the energy of backing a bet, but this is kind of ridiculous, isn't it? We're cherry-picking our tragic moments, which brings us back to Monday. Unfortunately for Castellanos, but not for the Mets, he went 0 for 4, crushing all of those bets, but he still had the Mets broadcast team talking.
Oh, Lunchable. Oh, no. No, not a Lunchable. It's a peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Crustable. It's called Crustable.
Yeah, now he might have to change his name to Nick Crustabolanos. And if Nick actually had homered for the Pope, I would have said automatic Hall of Fame induction and a key to Vatican City. All right, toss me another one, babyface. Yeah. Oh, underhand. All right. Clock management and draft. All right. Usually I complain most about NFL clock management in the playoffs, figuring that's when it's at its very worst, but I stand corrected. The absolute worst use of the clock in the NFL occurs right here, right now during the NFL draft. There's no debating this. We saw it all unfold again last night. Teams taking the full 10 minutes to draft a player who's been sitting there ranked atop their big board for a full 3 months. The WNBA basically has a week after the college season ends, and they get it done. But the NFL gives teams extra time to decide as if they're studying for their MCATs. 10 minutes per pick? The best actress winning at the Oscars only gets 90 seconds to thank everyone she's ever met. And if she goes long, she's played off by some octogenarian with a harp. Hell, Mel Kiper doesn't take 10 minutes to sculpt his ridiculous hair. The Titans were taking Cam Ward. They knew they were taking Cam Ward. Why are they using all 10 minutes? They needed all of 3 months and 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Cam Ward's parents were fitted for Titans matching pajamas by the equipment manager back in February. I'm convinced teams can gather their picks in under 10 minutes. You know how? Because they have to. Starting today, the allotted draft time decreases from 10 to 7 minutes in the second round to 5 minutes in rounds 3 through 6 and 4 minutes in round 7. So let's go, Browns. You're on the clock in round 2. You've made your fans wait an entire lifetime for a championship. You don't need to keep them in suspense for a player who will be out of the league by October. All right, one more, babyface. Oh, Shaq's attack. Well, this is certainly what I'll remember about the opening round of this year's NBA playoffs. Number 32 going number 2. Earlier this week on the greatest show on TV aside from this one, Inside the NBA, Shaquille O'Neal took a break from reviewing highlights to make a highlight of his own. Take a look at this.
You all right, big fella? Catching a cramp?
Go ahead, keep talking, Jeff.
Yeah, we're on TV.
I know what we're doing, go ahead.
Yeah, that's that olive oil you've been drinking.
I know.
Hey, take some matches with you.
Yeah, supposedly before the show, he'd been drinking olive oil to clean his gut, but maybe he drank motor oil because he took off like he was a Lamborghini at a Le Mans time trial. Usually Shaq is racing Kenny to the big board, not the big boys room. He came back and said, "Sorry about that, America." But he should have really been apologizing to me. I had bet Ernie at 12-1 odds to be the first guy to experience an in-show bowel movement. I guess drinking oil before a 1 a.m. telecast isn't wise after all, but then again, good decisions may not be Shaq's forte. After all, he did star in Kazam. Either way, this was the most inexplicable NBA dump since Dallas traded Luka for AD and an autographed Laker girl calendar. Sure enough, the next night, TNT had a TN toilet in studio, and knowing Shaq, this will all lead to a lucrative endorsement deal with Tidy Bowl, or at least a fun new nickname. Might I recommend Shaq Poo, Shaq Duty, the Big Doosel?
Oh, come on.
I just love being in third grade again. All right, that does it for Tossing Topics. Now it's time for my irrationally angry attempt to make rational sense of a somewhat irrational bet. It's Wager Radio. All right, with David Wright here waiting on deck, I'm starting to get nostalgic about my hometown of New York. So I figured now's as good a time as any to put some money where my melancholy mouth is. Listen, by now you should know I hate the New York Yankees more than I hate leafy greens, but I do have a special fondness for usable currency, and that's why right now I'm going to FanDuel Sportsbook and putting a few ducats on the state of New York to win this year's World Series. That's a fun prop. It pays plus 450. I reluctantly gave this bet out a few weeks ago on Against All Odds, but now I'm completely on board. Let's do the math. We could already rule out North Dakota, Maine, Hawaii, and like 25 other states that are too lame to field the team. Plus, as we finish out the month of April, both the Mets and Yankees are on top of their divisions, and they're not even playing well. Also, and this could very well happen, if during the next 4 or 5 months, the mighty Dodgers decide to move back to Brooklyn, it'll be Cash City for the cousin. Take the state of New York to win the series. It's like the Billy Joel of bets. Either it's going to be a big shot, or by the end of summer, it'll crash its car into a tree. All right, time for our first break. When we get back, we'll remain in New York state of mind. We've got David Wright on all things Mets and his early World Series prediction. All next on Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend. All right, welcome back to Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend. What an absolute treat this is for me. Our next guest is a 7-time All-Star, the New York Metropolitans' all-time leader in hits, RBIs, runs scored. He was known as Captain America, and as far as I'm concerned, he's the Messiah. David Wright, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. You forgot I lead the franchise in strikeouts also.
Oh, strikeout? I didn't want to mention that. All right.
Probably errors. You can look up errors, probably errors as well.
Do you root for some Mets to strike out and boot some easy ground balls so that you no longer have that distinction?
Well, now that they're, deservingly so, handing out 15-year contracts, I don't think I have to worry.
That's right. You're exactly right. The longer the contracts, the easier it is for you. All right. First of all, congratulations are in order. Later this summer, on July 19th, your number 5 is going to be retired, and you'll be inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame. Well deserved. How exciting is this? Or is this just a pain because now you have to provide tickets for everyone you know?
The ticket requests are coming in, but certainly I got to know a lot of the guys whose number mine is going to be next to, and just to look up there, and I had a great relationship with the franchise, Tom Seaver, and obviously I've gotten to know Doc and Daryl and Keith from the '86 team. So, to look up there, and it's this weird feeling of, deep down inside, it's like, do I really deserve this? But just a really cool, humbling feeling. I'm not looking forward to the speech because, the kickback of the microphone, it always screws me up.
Oh, yeah.
And I always feel myself mumbling and stumbling more than normal. But surreal experience, surreal honor, and really excited to go and enjoy that day.
I think you should make an announcement. Say, hey, we need to step up the acoustics here. I'm the franchise leader in strikeouts, for God's sakes. No, maybe that wouldn't.
Yeah, so maybe I can maybe with your help, I can record the message and they can just play it on the Jumbotron.
That's great. I do feel like it's your day, and Stephen Cohen should let you do whatever you want. You should manage. You could pinch hit. You could water the field. Can you put in a request? Is there something that you ever wanted? You looked around like, hey, that might be cool to do.
Yes,
give it to me.
Torpedo bat.
Torpedo bat.
That's my request, the torpedo bat.
I want to talk about those. First of all right, let's talk about it now because it just drives me crazy. And now it's like upwards of like 20 guys are using it, maybe even more. Similar to steroids, some of the ex-players must be really upset about this. I mean, it's like, hey, this is such an advantage. You mean to tell me I could have always moved the fat part of the barrel to the spot in the bat that I hit it the most times? That seems too easy, right?
Yeah, I'm disappointed in myself for not thinking of it because I probably led the league in getting jammed. But the flip side of that is if they had moved the center of gravity or whatever you call it down towards the middle, like the broken bat flares that would fall in front of the right fielder might have been caught. So therefore, I'm looking at it as a glass half full type thing where, I got jammed so badly that I couldn't hit it out of the ballpark, but the right fielder probably would have caught it instead of it falling right in front of him.
I see. Okay, well, that's good. Cup half full.
Yeah.
That's why you're the best. All right, I want to go back quickly to the uniform, retiring your number. I was looking at the number 5s. You talked about the Mets, the Strawberries, the Seavers, but at the number 5 specifically, player for player, that might be one of the best numbers out there for baseball. You got yourself, you have DiMaggio, you have Albert Pujols, Brooks Robinson, and George Brett on the hot corner, Johnny Bench, Freddie Freeman. This makes you better than all those guys in my estimation. But as a third baseman, did you idolize Brett growing up? Brooks Robinson was a little before your time. What made you go with 5?
Yeah, so I grew up in Virginia. So I was a Met fan because of our AAA team in Norfolk. But once a year, my dad would take my brothers and I to the brand new Camden Yards. So I loved Cal Ripken. I loved the Orioles were my American League team. But when I got called up, I had no idea what number I was going to be. Throughout the minor leagues, when they would let me choose, I always chose number 4. I got to AAA, or go back a little bit. My first spring training was that spring, and I was number 72, which they put a lot of the younger players in the higher numbers. So flying into Shea Stadium that morning, I didn't have a clue what number I'd be. Like, I'd be just as happy with 72 as I would 5 at that point. But that was one of the greatest thrills for me, was walking into the clubhouse, and we had our Snow White. That's what we called those white uniforms, our Snow Whites, hanging. And I saw number 5 on the back, and it kind of hit me. Well, I was like, wow, this is a big deal. And I must have put that uniform on and just stared at myself in the mirror for probably 20 or 30 minutes before that game. But to answer your question directly, George Brett, Scott Rowland, Chipper to some extent, although we're a little closer in age. Those are like my guys that I grew whether it was middle school, high school, idolizing. So,
not Chipper, really Chipper. Yeah.
Well, Chipper is, Chipper, I will always mostly publicly bash just because, we're rivals and stuff, but Chipper's the best. We're in a fantasy football league to this day, and there's nobody that I enjoy beating more in fantasy football than Chipper Jones. So, he's the man. But going back to 5, I got a chance to hang out with George Brett at the All-Star game in Kansas City, and I got my All-Star jersey number 5 signed by George Brett, and it was just a really cool little thing that he put from one 5 to another, which I have displayed proudly.
Oh, that's awesome. That's pretty good. George Brett, local kid here in Southern California, too, played on that El Segundo Little League team. Not the one that recently won the title. He's years older. But yeah, it's funny. Growing up, I'm older than you. The Mets had a million third basemen before you, like in a decade span. It was like Richie Hebner, Elliot Maddox, Hubie Brooks. It took about 10 years to settle into Ray Knight and Howard Johnson. As far as the Mets go, were those your guys, Ray Knight? I'm trying to think how old you were, probably
Hojo.
like in 86, 80.
Hojo. I was a little too young, but my dad was a police officer in Norfolk, Virginia. And there was a time where he worked vice and narcotics, and a time also where he was undercover. And his undercover get-up was a Mets starter jacket. So, I don't remember the 86 team because I was too young. But I remember my dad's reaction, like watching specific Mets games. So it was always cool to go to spring training, my first couple of spring trainings. And I was so starstruck of Hojo and Gary Carter and Mookie Wilson and Tim Tuffle and all these 86 guys that my dad loved. Hearing the stories from my dad, I was starstruck at spring training. And it took me a good few weeks to warm up to even be able to go up and kind of introduce myself and kind of, talk a little turkey.
That's very cool. And then you make the Mets and you're the captain. Now, being a captain, you're a leader in the clubhouse. Were there strange jobs or tasks that you were asked to do as Mets captain? And like when you go to Colorado, did you have to make sure everybody was in bed by curfew? Or was it just the letter on the jersey?
So when I went to Colorado, my main task was our bullpen catcher, who was the best man at my wedding, Dave Raccanello, was offered money to jump into the fountain. It's right off their bullpen. And of course, between him and Eric Langiel, the other bullpen catcher, I hate to use the word court gesture, but they, a lot of the guys will say, hey, I'll give you X amount of dollars to go, eat this hot pepper. I'll give you X amount of dollars to go jump in the fountain at Coors Field. So that was my main priority. Most of the time was not necessarily babysitting, but kind of babysitting and making sure that we get in too much trouble. But I'm a very non-confrontational person. So probably one of the toughest tasks of being the captain of the team is having tough conversations with guys over, whether it's, little things like not running a ball out as hard as we could have, or having tough conversations after a losing streak, or, whatever the case may be. So that was probably the trickiest thing for me, was finding out what makes certain players tick and then trying to individualize those conversations to touch that nerve that gets them to, be the best teammate they can or be the best player that they can.
Right. And some guys eating unlimited hot peppers is what made them tick. So yeah, I guess you had to deal with that.
Well, the bullpen catchers don't have to perform. They have,
that's true.
They warm up the guys, but other than that, there's no real direct outcome.
I gotcha.
Finality of the game. So I guess that's why they can kind of do what they do.
Yeah. You guys do what you want. Yeah. Did you and Derek Jeter ever have a New York baseball captain's dinner? And if so, who paid?
He would 100% pay. But that was my first real look into like the celebrity side of baseball. Was we played in the WBC together. And I remember going to Toronto. I think our first round was in Toronto. And he asked me to go to dinner with him. It was a small group of us. And walking out of the hotel, it was like, Justin Bieber, walking out with the paparazzi and stuff like that. And that was kind of my first real experience with, because, you're a baseball player, you make a couple all-star teams in New York, people recognize you, people say hello, but it's never like that crazy things that you read about in the tabloids, or you look at on the covers of the magazines before you're about to check out of the grocery stores. That was the stuff that I read about on the front page of the magazines in the airports. And that experience was kind of, for me, like, wow, he has to deal with a lot more than just trying to go up there and get a couple hits in his at-bats tonight.
Yeah. Would you have traded that, or would you have liked a little more of that? Or do you feel like your fame and was just the right spot?
I would have taken whatever it took to win the championships that he took. So if that had to come along with it, then yes, sign me up. But, the way he carried himself, and he was one of the guys that he probably got so tired of me during that WBC because I tailed him, I followed him. I was like a little puppy dog, just wanting to be around him, to learn and to see the work ethic. Like at that point, he was obviously one of the best to ever do it, but he was still one of the first ones to the batting cages, went through the same routine every day. Kind of stuck with me was that if Derek Jeter at this point in his career is still putting in that kind of work, then I need to be doubling that to try to get to that point in my career where, that's where I want to go. So I learned a lot from Derek those few weeks.
Was I feel like the Yankees-Mets rivalry, although the Soto signing has kind of intensified it a little, but I feel like just this means most to me and everybody else is further down because I have a lot of a-hole Yankee fan friends through the years. What was it like playing against them? Was the Subway Series a bigger deal than some of the other games?
I loved it. I mean, that was one of the dates where you get the schedule, towards the end of the previous year. So I always looked for that Yankee series because I love the intensity. I love not necessarily I guess like the on-field rivalry, but what I enjoyed more was wanting our fan base to go to work. Typically it was on the weekends, back to work on Monday and have bragging rights over their Yankee counterpart. So I loved the atmosphere. I loved the intensity, much like I loved playing in Philadelphia for the same reasons. So I loved that hype kind of football game feeling before a baseball game. And that's what you got with the Yankee series. And that's what you got for us for the Philadelphia series.
Which do you think was the best Mets team you played on? Was it the 2015 team, went all the way to the World Series, or that 06 team, pretty stacked, took the Cards to Game 7, in NLCS, and then Beltran called strike 3, still so upsetting. Would it be? It'd be between those two, right?
To Carlos' defense, that was a nasty series of pitches by Adam Wainwright.
Yeah.
But if we could somehow interchange, like take the pitching staff from 15 and the offense from 06, that would be probably the ideal scenario because we scored so many runs in 06. And people forget that El Duque was our number 1 going into the playoffs, and he hurt his foot right before the playoffs started. So we were going into that series without our number 1 starter. But 2015, I mean, what a embarrassment of riches for young pitchers with, DeGrom, Harvey, Syndergaard, Matz, Bartolo being the kind of the veteran on that. I mean, just a really, really deep, dominant pitching staff. So, there's parts I'd take from each of those teams.
I feel like Stephen Cohn's got a lot of money. He could actually make that work. Trade the pitching staff from 06 to 15. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dreaming.
Hopefully I would make that team.
I think you'd be okay. You had so many big hits for the Mets. Was the home run in Game 3 at Citi Field? Is that the crowd going? But I don't think they've still died down. Was that the best for you?
Yes, that was wild because for a number of reasons. Selfishly, like I knew the end was near for me. Like I knew physically, like I was struggling. So I knew that this was probably my last chance, at a deep playoff run, and to be able to hit that home run. And as an athlete, very rarely did I allow myself to look around and soak it in. And that was one of the few times that I remember in my career while running around the bases and scoring. And I never like hand gestures to the crowd or to my family or like look into the crowd after home runs or hits or anything like that. Like I remember stepping on home plate, and typically the first thing that I think about is like, high-fiving my teammate on deck and going into the dugout. Like the first thing I thought about was like, look up into the stands, understand this feeling, and just remember it and try to package it up because you may never get this feeling again. So that was by far the best moment that I've ever had on a baseball field.
I'm getting goosebumps on my flabby arms here thinking about it. All right, listen, we're having a ton of fun. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with the great David Wright. All right, welcome back to Cousin Sal's winning weekend. We have number 5. Yeah, that number 5 is getting retired. David Wright is with us. All right, now I have to bring you back down. I'm sorry, but I think it was 2009. I went to see you at Citi Field. I brought my then 5-year-old son, Archie. We sat close because the crowd was rooting for the Mets. It's always important when you raise a kid in California rooting for the Mets, like you bring him to the Dodger game and the Mets come out of the Padres, but everybody's rooting against the Mets. So it's kind of, it screws with a kid's mind. So anyway, it was important that we sat close, and we sat so close that a deafening roar of a Matt Cain fastball hitting you in the head, second at bat. You had just come back, I think, after a week. And Archie was terrified. You probably weren't too jazzed yourself. He didn't play much baseball after that. My question, long way to go, is do you feel like kids quit baseball mostly because they get hit by a pitch, regardless of what stage it is? You think so?
For sure. I mean, just speaking from a guy that got paid quite a bit of money to play baseball, like after that incident, like, yeah, you're a little gun shy getting back into the box because that, most of the hit by pitches, sting for a moment and you get over it, you get a bruise and no big deal. But there's certain parts of your body that you get hit and it hurts, your hands, ankles, knees, head, and that was one of the things where it took me a little bit to get comfortable getting back. And I never had that feeling before where, you get a little happy feet in the batter's box. So yeah, it took a little bit to get used to getting back in there and kind of getting your feet set and saying, okay, let's go do this. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you coach now, right? You're youth coach in multiple sports. And I always used to think, wow, it's great that kids get to start off playing soccer and Little League Baseball at 4 and 5 and whatever. But do they flake out earlier as a result? I mean, if by 11 years old, you're like, hey, I've been playing 7 years of baseball, I feel like that combined with hit by a pitch, kids are throwing harder, that burns kids out. Does it almost work against kids to start early?
Yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve. And I'm experiencing it firsthand now because we live in Southern California, as you well know, and the weather's great all year round. So these kids now, like when I grew up, I played baseball in the spring, basketball in the winter, fall, soccer, football, whatever. So, you're just going kind of from one sport to another. Now it's like if you're not playing baseball all year round for these kids or playing soccer all year round for these kids, you feel like you're losing ground to Johnny next door. And it's hard for me to wrap my head around because I appreciate, the grind and wanting to play, but I think it's detrimental because the kids don't get to experience other sports. And I think it makes you a better athlete and therefore can teach you different life lessons if you play different sports. It's tough for me to tell my 4-year-old son that, hey, you have to play baseball all year round because, your friends are playing baseball all year round. And I want you to be just as good as them. I refuse to do that because A, I don't want to burn them out, but B, I want them to experience other sports that maybe they're good at, maybe they're not good at.
I do want to warn you, not that I'm giving you any news, but as a coach, if you go into coaching, I feel like the NIL deals, you used to be able to say, listen, parents, calm down. No one from Manhattan Beach has ever made the major league, so we're just going to have fun, whatever. Now with NIL deals, that's not the case. There's money to be made when these kids are 18, 19, 20. Parents are going to become bigger a-holes. Do you feel that too?
Yes. But, like I've started coaching. I tell each of my kids I'll coach one sport. So my oldest daughter, I coach her soccer team, which I got no idea about soccer. So like I'm out there just like, basically reading like Soccer for Dummies on the field. My middle one, I coach her softball team, which I know a little bit more about. And then my youngest, I coach his baseball team, which is, obviously my sweet spot. But yeah, I mean, I fortunately, we're still at the age where we can kind of handpick the kids on the team and therefore handpick the parents on the team. But there's going to come a time where I see it coming already, where it's going to bother me to no end when I have to have that, like we talked about, confrontational conversation with the parent saying, hey, like I want the kids to have fun. Like your kid may be the best kid on the team, but he's not going to play shortstop every inning. He's not going to pitch every inning. We're going to rotate it around. So, I mean, I'm almost to the point now where I'm thinking of how I'm going to handle this. And it's almost, hey, parents, sign a contract. Like you don't want to be on my team, don't be on my team. But here are the ground rules, and either take it or leave it.
Right. Yeah, I feel, I'm on my 11-year-old's on a travel team, plays third base, by the way. He loves it. But the parents are, probably me included, there's a reason there's a cage up right there. And by the way, game changer does not help things. Like, you gave my kid an error there? No, that was a hit. That took a bad hop, That's the
best part about this is the jockeying back and forth between the parents to hit or error,
Right. Yeah, as if it matters. All right, real quick, let's talk about this year's Mets team. Soto gets a big deal.
Third base. What number does he wear?
He wears number 20 for Alonso. So there's a little, everything's getting screwed up there. But I should get him.
Is he doing okay?
He's doing all right. Yeah, he's doing okay. We're going to get him a torpedo bat, and his average is going to go up about 25 points. No, I'm just waiting for him to ask for one.
You can go buy the $700 one at one of the sporting goods stores that seems like it hits for you. I went and got my son a T-ball bat when he first started, and the line to get in the showcase that's locked for the $700 bats was about 12 deep, and I couldn't believe it.
The Mets, Soto, they re-signed Alonso, which is why some kids are wearing the number 20. neck and neck with the Phils right now to win the division. What do you think as far as expectations for this team?
I mean, I think that, ownership, the front office, I love the depth that this team has. And I think that if you look at a good example is the starting pitching, and, there may not be that big, sexy name that's kind of 1-2 in our, although Senga was an all-star, Manaea was lights out last year, Peterson's up and coming, but the depth that they have, because the injuries are going to happen, but when you can replace one of those guys with a quality arm is, I think, the utmost importance in a 162 game schedule. So, I expect them to win the NL East. I expect the offense to come alive here very soon. The pitchers are going to pitch. We need a healthy Senga. We need a healthy Manaea for sure. Back into the bullpen looks fantastic. But I'm expecting big things from this team because it's a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun to go to the NLCS out here in Southern California. Hopefully this year there's a different outcome. But I definitely think that you're looking at the two best teams in the National League between the Dodgers and the Mets.
Yeah. Is it fair what the Dodgers have done? I know they could talk about salary and everything, and the Mets are at number one, but they've scoured Japan and other Asian countries and signed the best players from those nations. And now they sit back and as the wins and the money pours in. Should the Mets do this with with Dubai? Just find the best players Dubai has to offer and sign them and count on the loot rolling in from the desert?
Let's go. Sure. Let's go. Yeah. The Dodgers have found the secret sauce. There's no doubt. But I think that along with that, they do a ridiculously good job of finding, the Max Muncies, the Chris Taylors, kind of those minor league free agents that, are kind of sitting out there, and they find them, and whether it's the development or whether it's the scouting, I think that's part of the key is, finding some of those diamonds in the rough. So if we can do that, I think we'll be golden, but I think we are trending in the right direction. And a lot of that credit goes to, the front office and ownership for kind of taking that deep dive and that plunge into, believing in this team and certainly spending the money to put that product on the field.
For sure. Give me your way too early World Series pick this year.
Let's see. Well, you know what? We just talked about it. So why not? Let's go Mets Orioles.
Okay.
My two teams growing up. So let's do Mets Orioles, and let's go real storybook and go Mets in 7.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I think we can get nice odds for Mets O's. A rematch of the '69 series. First one.
At heart, I'm an East Coast guy, so that'd be cool to see. Mets.
Yeah. I have one more question for you before we let you go. We call this Cousins Conundrum.
Cousins Conundrum.
This is an easy one, I think. Usually my conundrums are very layered, but this is simple. You finally get your elusive World Series ring, but it's while playing with the New York Yankees. Do you take the ring, or do you leave things as is, ending your career ringless, but with the beloved New York Mets? I'm going to put my head down and pray that you lie to me right now. What are you going to do, David Wright?
I mean, come on. There's no place like that. I would never, ever, it wouldn't even mean anything to me winning elsewhere. So,
yes.
It's for me, it's Mets or bust.
God bless you. God bless you. Forget July 19th. Let's retire that number right now. David Wright, thanks so much for coming on. Congratulations. And by the way, I'm going to retire number 5 right here in the studio. So feel free to come by. You could use the same acceptance speech. It's okay.
I love that. Thanks for having me. Let's do it again. That was fun.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. We'll be right back with more Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend.
Back to Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend. Let's bring in our next guest. We've seen NBA teams put together their big three, and my show is no different. These three guys treat every show like it's a Game 7. They're my wizards of wagering, my gurus of gambling, my barons of betting, my overlords of the odds. From the Against All Odds podcast, the D3, Harry, Brother Brian, Darren, the Parlay Kid. What is happening, fellas?
What's going on, Sal?
What's going on, buddy? Well, but what a treat it was, guys. I was talking to David Wright, one of my favorite Mets of all time. I was on top of the world. And then we try to set this segment up, which starts exactly the same time every week. We join the same stupid Zoom link every week. We all have it down, and 45 minutes later, we still are not able to hear Harry, which may sound like a good thing, Bri, but we could see him. I think we're keeping him up in the box just to torture him and so that he can torture us, right?
Yes, please keep him up there. I think it makes it really funny for us to just watch Harry say nothing.
I don't know what's going on here, Parlay Kid. Let's get to some big game threes in the NBA playoffs. Damian Lillard returned for the Bucks in game 2, but it didn't matter. Pacers took care of business at home again. They're up 2-0. The Bucks lost by 8 Tuesday night. It was very even stat-wise, except Pacers were 19 for 19 from the free throw. Pretty good. The Bucks had 16 turnovers to 8. 6 players in double figures for Indiana. The Pacers are a 500 team on the road now. They go to Milwaukee. It's do or die for the Bucks, but I can't take them. I'm going to go with a player prop here, and that's Tyrese Halliburton under 19.5 points. That's even. It's so tough because the Bucks for long stretches don't play defense, which is a problem, but if they could do it just this one game, I'll collect on this player prop. Halliburton 19 or under in 10 of his last 13 on the road. He averages 15 over that span. Buckle down a little bit in this game, Bucks, and Pacers really don't need it, so maybe Halliburton stays under that 20 number. Bri, you also have a player prop.
Yeah, I have a player prop. I think I like the Bucks. I'm debating how much to put on them, but I'm going to go with Giannis to go over 6.5 assists. Look, Giannis during the season averaged exactly 6.5 assists in the regular season. In game 2, he had 7 assists against the Pacers. But, the thing was, to end the season, Giannis averaged close to 12 assists per game in April in 6 games. So I think back at home, I feel more comfortable that Giannis' teammates will make a few more jump shots here against this Pacers D that really isn't that good. Look, Dame, after being on the court for one game, should be more comfortable. I may put a little bit here on the Giannis triple-double, but I'm also going to go the over 6.5 assists.
All right, Parlay Kid, let's go 3 for 3 with our player props. What do you have?
You're going to be taking Portis over 13.5 points at -108. He averages about 14 points per game on the season, coming off a 28-point performance. Kind of kept the Bucks in it. In game 2, he's gone over this 13.5 in 4 of his last 5, 8 out of his last 11. He comes off the bench, but he plays starter minutes. He's a clutch performer, Sal. He likes the big moments. Let's take Bobby Portis over 13.5 points.
All right. For the record, Harry has over 230 in this game here. I'll you know what? I'm going to try to summon him and figure out what kind of trend he would say. All right. Okay. In 2007, these two teams matched up in April and played a game where 272 points were scored. Take the over. All right? Thank you, babyface.
That was good.
Right. So, boy, it's so much better if we could just imitate Harry, right? Not have to actually listen to the real one. All right. Now, the Lakers even their series with the Timberwolves, and the series shifts to Minnesota. They're a 3-point favorite. 206.5 is the over-under. I am so mad at the Lakers for not covering that 9.5.
Bad one.
The other day. I don't know what it is. I don't like the dribbling the ball out with 40 seconds left when you know the other team's going to – like, it's okay to take a shot if the clock demands that you take a shot, right, Brian? Like,
I think that was a point in the game that there was still enough time left. I mean, I get it. They dribbled it out, and then Minnesota dribbled it out, but there was enough time left. I mean, they let that clock run from like the 45 seconds down to 20 or whatever.
All right,
so
it's not important. LA even things up at 485. Now back to Minnesota, where they used to play the Lakers. Is this a home game for the Lakers? Technically, no, it's not. Lakers 2-14 straight up in the last 16 when playing on the road in Minnesota. I'm taking the T-Wolves, laying the 3. As far as playoff teams go, the Lakers are the worst road team in the Western Conference, 19-22 away from crypto. T-Wolves covered 4 of their last 5 at home. I looked at the splits. Mike Conley, a good deal better in home games, almost always exceeds 10 points, rebounds in Minnesota. T-Wolves shot 38% on Tuesday. I think this is a different story. I think this is the Ant Edwards, Julius Randle show. The Lakers have been benefactors of the calls. That'll go the other way. I think it's a nice price, -3 for the home team that kind of has to have it and really might be better overall. I'm taking the T-Wolves. Let's go 109.97. Can they win that? I'll go -3. Parlay Kid, I think you like the Tim. Well, you at least like Ant Edwards here.
Yeah, like you just said, Sal. expecting a big performance out of him. Over 25.5 points at -122, averaged 27.5 per game during the regular season, has yet in the first 2 games to have his signature playoff performance, which I think he's due for one, shooting only 40% from the field in the first 2 games. I think home court he'll find his shooting touch again, and I think he's due for one of those breakout 35 to 40 point performances here. Over 25.5. Should be an easy one. Let's take it.
All right, Bri, you have Luka in the assist category.
Yeah, I'm going to take Luka under 7.5 assists. I think it's -138. Not too long ago, I would have said 7.5 for Luka, right, is a no-brainer, right? You got to go over,
Right.
But not necessarily the case recently. And this series, to me, just seems like every game could be a defensive battle, right? So points are going to be a little bit tougher to score here. And while Luka had 9 assists in game 2, he did only have 1 assist in game 1. And he's looked with the Lakers to be much more of a scorer, I feel like, than facilitator. In his last 6 regular season games, he did not have more than 7 assists. So I think with him and LeBron on the floor, he'll look to score more rather than pass. So I'm going to go under 7.5 assists for Luka.
All right. Well, so Harry, for what it's worth, went LeBron over 31.5 points, rebounds combined at -125. What would be a good reason?
Loves game 3s, and he's got 3 kids.
3 kids, game 3. This is where he shines. Also, there's reports he's been in the league very long time. This could be his last game. I'm not saying it is, but it could be over 31.5. All right. It really is like very freeing. All right, let's switch things up and head to the NHL, the top seed in the East. That Carolina Hurricanes look to go up 3-0 on the New Jersey Devils. Series goes to New Jersey. We're looking at a line of -162 for the Canes, +134 in the take back for the Devils. Over under is 5.5. They are, Parlay Kid, looking like perhaps the worst team in the playoffs, the Devils. They lost 3-1 and 4-1, 7-2 combined in the 2 games. More scoring chances, many more for the Hurricanes, 73-50 in shots. Frederik Andersen's been lights out, saving 48 of those 50 shots from the Devils. Now they come home where they're a shade over 500. I'm not going to pick the game, but I found a fun player prop. It is a long shot. Jordan Martinook, first Hurricanes goal, +2,300. He scored 1 in game 2. He has 2 assists overall this series. He's all over the net. He has 8 shots in 2 games. Only 15 goals all year, but he's letting it rip against this erratic Devils defense. His 5th worst goals against average. Martinook, 23-1 for first Hurricanes goal. Bri, what do you got here?
Yeah, I'm going to go under 5.5 at -130. I don't know what happened to this Devils team, right? They've just, since January, this team's been awful, right? And now, without Jack Hughes since the beginning of March, really offensively, they've been really, really bad. And like you were saying, so I think this is another 3-2, 3-1 type of game, Sal. So I'll go under.
Okay. Parlay Kid, player prop here.
Yeah, I like what Brian's saying, but I'm going to go kind of against that by taking Timo Meier, anytime goal scorer, +230 for the Devils. Nothing like a desperate hockey team, Sal. Obviously, the Devils, they can't be any more desperate, being down 2-0 to the team will have to win it all, the Carolina Hurricanes. Must-win game. He's -3, Timo Meier, through the first 2 games. Hasn't registered a point, but he really is one of the guys that the Devils lean on. He, in his last 300 career games, he's got 130 goals. So basically, he averages a goal in about 43% of the games that he plays in over the last 4 or 5 seasons. He's due. He hasn't scored in a while. I'm banking on him to get one here. The Devils need him to step up. He's got to do something here. Let's take Timo Meier, anytime goal, +230.
All right. Harry, for the record, has the Devils +134. And his reasoning is, in 2018, my wife Angie went to a Halloween party dressed as a devil. Everybody loved it. It was my friend Trevor's house, and we had a ball. We all did gummies. It was a great time. Devils +134. Make it 2-1. All right, let's move on.
That's a good one.
Right? I would say something like that. By the way, I'm looking at him in the box here. This is easily the longest he's gone without eating if he's not doing a podcast, right? I don't.
No doubt
about it. Okay. The NFL draft continues later tonight, rounds 2 and 3. Hold you over. Then we're going to have a draft of our own. That's what we're doing. This is the draft of the NFL draft moments. Yeah, I went in order of least hair to most. I had to really study the tape. So it'll be Harry, Darren, Brian, then myself, except Harry is not going to be on the clock. I have no idea what he'd probably say something about Mel Kiper's hair or something. But let's just move on. Darren, you have the first pick, and your first and only pick.
I think the Raiders really have probably have the advantage here in first round busts throughout the years for sure.
Yeah.
But then in 2000, you take a kicker in Janikowski in round 1. That he almost seems implausible, and that's only 25 years ago. So it's a 25-year anniversary of Sebastian Janikowski being taken round 1.
Let's hear the jingle. Can we add the jingle? All right, Brian, you're on the clock.
Well, look, I might miss my pick here because I think, Sal, you mentioned this the other day, but the Vikings in 2003, missing their pick. I mean, to me, look, when it's not your team and something like this happens, when they had the 7th pick in the draft, and I guess they were trying to work out some trades. That was a time where I think Mike Tice was the coach, right, for them. Yeah. And they just they ran out of time. And then the 2 teams right after them immediately swooped in and took their pick. So they went from drafting 7th down to 9th without any type of trade at all, which I think is like the funniest thing.
I'm going to pick, well, I guess Harry Harry picked the Vikings and skipped his pick by not being able to get online on the Zoom. All right, I'm going to go with my pick. CD Lamb's girlfriend looking at his phone. This was great. He was taken 17th overall by our Cowboys, Parlay Kid. He's on one phone in his right ear, and then his girlfriend reaches for his spare phone, and being the great hands guy that he is, Parlay Kid, he snatches it right back. I don't know if he was checking up on a DoorDash delivery. By the way, the Hawaiian food is here.
Oh, man. Hawaiian food tonight. What?
But I don't know if that's what he was checking on, or maybe he just doesn't want her looking at his phone, doesn't want his lady friend maybe seeing other lady friends congratulating him. Who knows? But anyway, he grabbed it. It's a fun moment. They're not together anymore. She was also Trey Young's ex-girlfriend. But when asked about this, the girlfriend said his agent was FaceTiming him while he was on the phone with the Cowboys. So I was doing the girlfriend thing and just going to tell the agent. And then CD said, y'all really got to chill. It wasn't even like that. So there you go. I think that's it. I like it. That's a good one. I don't know if Harry would have taken Belichick and the dog in the war room, but that's pretty good. All right, fellas, thanks so much. Harry has left us, not just on the Zoom. He's gone. He's gone from our lives forever. Rest in peace. We'll put up a nice card with a picture of him. I'm sending you guys giant Roger Goodell-size hugs. Enjoy the rest of the draft, and let's make some money tonight. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend. Welcome back to Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend. We are all out of time. My thanks to the great David Wright. Looking forward to your jersey retirement ceremony. I expect you to return the favor and thank me in your speech. And as always, thanks to the D3. You guys would never leave mid-show to go to the bathroom. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. And please always remember, you may feel like an underdog, but just know you're all my favorites. Happy handicapping.